a screen cannot interact with you. And sometimes a child needs to be bored. They need to figure out how to self-regulate. That is one of those things that you just cannot do for a parent. You have to allow them to calm their own bodies down. And we see parents, at a grocery store, if they get upset. Nobody wants to be that person in Walmart whose child is having a day. But we've all been there, right?
But that's the thing. And if people don't understand that, that's their problem.
Oh, absolutely. I smile at every parent I see whose kiddo is throwing a fit in the grocery store line and say, Mom, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Your mom, you're doing good. You got this. You got this. It's going to be okay. But the second that we hand that child a device, a phone, a tablet, or something, that device is calming that child down. The child is not calming the child down. And so the next time that they get upset, and let's face it, we all have the same emotion. It's just how we react to them.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. We are on part 3 of Kids and Phones. And on this episode, we're going to expand it more to screens in general. So we're talking about babies, toddlers, kids, and as they grow up, what it looks like now that we have so many screens all around us at all times that we can go to any time of the day. I mean, you can really be on a different screen all day long. And Deana Belote is here with us from Springfield Public Schools. And specifically, Deana, you work with parents as teachers.
Correct.
And so in that role, it's really unique because you're not only in the school, you're in a lot of homes, right?
Yes, we are. We're in the homes of prenatally up until the time kids go into kindergarten. We're in the homes of our families and our communities.
And so you're seeing those formative years where we're laying the foundation and what technology is looking like and what screens are looking like in the home. And both of my boys went through that program and had a great experience with our educators. And so if you haven't looked into that, it's a great program. But one thing that I wanted to talk to you about today, and you immediately said, yes, we're seeing this, is the rise of the amount of time that littles and children are spending on screens and on devices. And I think too, we mentioned COVID. Okay. And so the COVID babies are coming into school now, preschool, kindergarten, and we are seeing a shift that I think is pretty profound in that they had parents trying to work from home and how am I going to survive? I'm going to put my child on a screen and that's going to allow me to do my Zoom calls. And then the time just adds up. And I think all of us were just trying to navigate and figure out what to do in those moments. But it seems like it became a pattern and there was a shift there.
Absolutely. Screens have been on our homes for some time, even prior to COVID. But during the COVID years, they became very prevalent. They became normalized, and they became part of our homes and our daily lives. And right now, kids are, unfortunately, in front of a screen more than they ever have been.
And you say unfortunately because why? What are you seeing from that?
Well, we know what we follow the guidelines of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they study the impact of things like television, screens of all natures on kids. And we know that it leads to social and emotional behaviors, which is primarily what we're talking about in the schools that we're seeing. It also impacts our language delays and our cognitive delays.
Interesting.
Yes.
And so even when you think, well, they're watching something educational, that's not necessarily the outcome, is it?
No, it's not. It's about the interaction with the child. A screen can be a good tool, but it has to be very much regulated and monitored for it to be useful for a child.
I mean, you're talking 10, 15, 20 minutes for a toddler.
Oh, absolutely.
Would be a max amount,
Yes.
right?
Well, we would prefer under 2, no screens. That would be the guidelines. But if there is time between 18 and 24 months, we would hope that it would be limited to something where a parent is interacting with a program and a child. So we can find a way to make it interactive.
And so, as tempting as it may be, that screen is not a caregiver substitute.
No, it is not.
For a child.
No. It does not have the best interest of the child.
And what I feel like, too, is, when you're out and about, you never want to be judging another parent, because who knows what has happened prior to this moment that you're encountering someone. But it is heartbreaking when I see a child at a park, and I'm talking 3 years old, sitting by themselves on a phone.
Absolutely.
Or in the store, in a stroller, holding mom's iPad while we're shopping for groceries. And sometimes part of it, too, is, maybe they don't have that parents as teachers advocate in their home. Maybe that hasn't been modeled to them. For me as a mom, I feel like I've been blessed with a lot of resources. My own mom, good friends that are good moms and dads, supportive husband. And I know that I have that. But I just want to stop and I just want to say, hey, he doesn't really want that screen. He wants you. He wants you to talk to him, and you can. He's your child.
He wants that, and he needs that, because that is the connection that helps form during those formative years, that helps that brain develop. He's screaming out for it, even though he may scream when you take that device away. But if there's something I've seen, and over my many years of working with children and families in our community, is regardless of backgrounds, I believe that parents want what's absolutely best for their kids. They sometimes don't know how to get there.
Yes.
But those small interactions, whether it be at the grocery store or at the park or at mealtime, those are prime opportunities to interact and to teach your children. So when you do see children at restaurants and parks and the mall where they have those devices, we, with parents as teachers, would probably work with families to help those set them aside and look for those teaching moments.
Just interacting with your environment.
Interact with your environment. I can come up with lots of lesson plans for the grocery store.
Yes. And the kids actually enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Once they realize this is a special time that I'm having with my parent. And I think that every child craves that. Now, it's hard, with all the demands that we have as parents.
Oh, yes.
And with as tired as we can get. And, just being totally truthful, when your child is saying, will you play with me? They have a lot of needs they're expressing in that sentence. And you're thinking, I have a million things to do. And so I've been in that position as a parent. And what I do is, if I'm just feeling slammed and overwhelmed and tired, is I put a timer on my phone, and it's 15 minutes that I'm going to give my child my undivided attention on this floor, and we are going to come up with something super fun to do with these Duplos. And usually once you get into that mode, the time just flies by, but it's you setting aside everything that you have to do and watching your child blossom. And so I will say, I'm not a perfect mom. Nobody is. But being intentional about that, it does make a difference. And you'll never regret those minutes that you invest in your child.
You will never regret those minutes.
On the floor. Get on the floor with them and let them lead the play and play together. And honestly, though, it's hard to come by. It's hard to, as a busy household, set aside that 15 minutes. And I'm going to start dinner after that, or the Instapot's my best friend. Get it set, and then we're going to spend that time together. And how much that the kids want that. So I can remember back when my oldest was 3, and this would have been, during COVID, that I had my youngest. They're about 3 years apart. And everybody told me, you're not going to be able to do it all with the new baby. And so what you need to do is just break your little, I was against screens. Just break your your rule and just let Theodore watch Daniel Tiger or, these other positive shows. And I was dead tired. I mean, you're up all night with the baby, and then the baby sleeps a little bit longer than the toddler. And so that's what I did for 2 days. And I could immediately see how it was impacting him. And you have to admit it, your kids turn cranky. They turn irritable. They turn easily frustrated. And then if you are seeing a fit when you try to turn off the screen, let that be a sign to you. This isn't right. Yeah. And so that's what I saw as a mom. And I'm like, okay, then how am I going to navigate this? Well, the answer was every night at bedtime, I set out a little table, like their little play table, with random items on it that were just new and different from the day before, with a little lamp. And so he would come into my room, my oldest, and I just kind of watch him with one eye open, one eye closed, and let him do his activities. Tongs with some dry goods from the pantry and putting them in an ice cube tray. Just little things, a couple special coloring sheets, maybe some new stickers, maybe some tissue paper and a bottle of glue. Yeah. And so I would just find things to do, and the difference that made night and day for him starting out his day not on a screen.
Well,
that's just anecdotal. I mean, there's no science behind that. I'm just saying, as a mom, that was the experience that I had.
If listening to you talk about your strategies there, and those were strategies, they were coping
survival.
Well, and
yes.
We've all been there, and we know
just
how
wanting
hard
the
it is.
best
Yes.
for him. Like,
yes.
Did I want to go to bed 10 minutes earlier? Yeah. I really did.
Yes.
But did I see the positive impact for him?
Right.
And I'm not saying that's always the case, but I feel like as a parent, if it's a little bit harder for me, it's probably the right thing for them.
That's a very good point.
And like just getting your mind wrapped around that.
Mm-hmm.
And then those daily decisions become habits in the household.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set it up with the first one, and then the second child is more interested in screens. And I actually have the older child policing his screen use and telling him, Milo, that's not good for you. That's not good for your brain. You don't need to be doing that. Let's go and work on some art together, and let's go and read. And, the oldest child, they sort of take on the third parent role.
Yes, they do.
They become leaders. But I mean, that's just been my experience. And so the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, now that we have, everybody says the COVID babies. The COVID babies are in school now. They're coming into preschool and they're coming into kindergarten. And that's the age that my younger child is. And some of the behaviors that I have seen that the teachers have had to face in the classroom, I wonder if there is some kind of tie to the increased screens or what the statistics are showing us. Because it's been more extreme from what I remember when my oldest started school. I don't remember. And he says that there weren't the screaming, the yelling, the inability to be a part of the classroom, throwing things, just not knowing how to cope. Are you guys seeing that can be tied to screens, or what are you guys seeing?
Well, we do know that is a major contributor.
Really?
Yes. We are seeing what I would like to call big emotions in our classrooms. Primarily, I'll talk about our Wonder Years program, and that's our pre-K
preschool
program.
Mm-hmm.
We do see a lot of self-regulation issues.
And they would have been born in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yes. These are the kids that were locked down. Screens
socially, without having grandma and grandpa around. And
right.
Okay.
These kids, we do a dial screening on all of the kids that come into our program. And I can tell you right now, over half of our kids come in with an assessment from their parents, fill out a standardized test. And it's telling us that over half of our kids have social, emotional, or self-help delays. And those we're seeing them in the classroom. They have a hard time self-regulating.
And is that an increase from the last 5 years or so?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Like a big one?
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, the numbers are climbing each year. But I believe that a screen cannot interact with you. And sometimes a child needs to be bored. They need to figure out how to self-regulate. That is one of those things that you just cannot do for a parent. you have to allow them to calm their own bodies down. And we see parents, at a grocery store, if they get upset. Nobody wants to be that person in Walmart whose child is having a day. But we've all been there, right?
But that's the thing. And if people don't understand that, that's their problem.
Oh, absolutely. I smile at every parent I see whose kiddo is throwing a fit in the grocery store line and say, Mom, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Your mom, you're doing great. You got this. You got this. It's going to be okay. But the second that we hand that child a device, a phone, a tablet, or something, that device is calming that child down. The child is not calming the child down. And so the next time that they get upset, and let's face it, we all have the same emotion. It's just how we react to them.
School and in the workplace and out in the world, there's not going to be that opportunity. You have to come up with those skills somehow.
Yes.
And so we actually do learn those at a young age.
Absolutely. Those are the years that it's formed. How we react to our peers. When a child is on a screen, they're not interacting with a peer that they might in a classroom. And so those big emotions come out. And so we're seeing more difficulty with children interacting with one another. And that is also a concern.
In what sense? Just
conflict
developmentally.
Resolution, yes. Yeah.
And so, meanwhile, we still have the same classroom structures.
We do.
So we'll have one teacher for 20 or more children, age 5 and 6 when you get to kindergarten. And that teacher is being tasked with handling all of these incidents. And how can they do it? I mean, it's just, I think it's overwhelming for a lot of our educators, what we're asking them to do.
It is overwhelming for them. And teachers can talk to parents if they're not in school yet. They can join our program to be that support system to help give parents the resource connections to help them solve these, deal with these big problems. Yes, and we can support our educators. They need to know that we've got their back, that we understand what they're dealing with, and when parents partner with their teachers, good things happen.
Well, and two, I think that might be a good place to stop for today. But two, I think something else that, if you wouldn't mind doing another episode with us, I would love to talk about some of the resources that families can have and some ideas that they can incorporate at home, because, it's easy for us to sit here at the podcast with our coffees and tell parents what to do. But I've been that parent and I am that parent and I have little kids and I've been alone with them and it's hard.
It is the hardest thing and the most important thing that
and the most rewarding thing
in our lives.
And that's the thing, is when we have those tools and we're able to incorporate them, the difference that it makes. And when you see that growth in your child, how rewarding that is as a parent.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of At Home with Emily. I hope you got some valuable information. In our next episode with Deana, we're going to talk about some tools that you can incorporate with your own family to help overcome all of those screens that are coming at you all the time. If you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow Around the Ozarks on social media and head to aroundtheozarks.com and be sure to sign up for our daily newsletter. We'll see you next time.